What's up, folks? Welcome to another episode of the 10 Horse Money YouTube channel, and today's video is going to be about co-angling. Had several people reach out to me, ask me some questions about being a co-angler. I haven't dropped a video on co-angling in probably, I don't know, a year and a half, 2 years, and they asked me if I had any updated tips or just things that I've learned over the past few years as a co-angler. A little bit of background information. I started fishing the FLW BFLs in 2015 in the LBL division, so that's Kentucky and Barkley Lakes. And I dabbled in the Ozark division the last 2 years. 2022 I fished the LBL division and the Ozark division, the complete seasons, all 5 tournaments on both sides. I've been in an Illini tournament division, Illini BFL division. I fished a few Toyota series, and last year was a pretty decent year for me. You know, I finished, I had a 3rd place and 5th place finish, and I had several top 12s, I guess you would say. I don't know. I did okay, but a lot of people are starting to fish out of the back of the boat. Tournament fishing just keeps growing and growing, and it's different out of the back of the boat. So I just wanted to share some of the things that I feel may be helpful to you guys out there if you're considering getting into the back of the boat and jumping into that tournament scene. First of all, let's talk about etiquette. Whether you're fishing in a bass club, BFL, Toyota Series, Bassmaster Opens, it does not matter. It's the same. Etiquette out of the back of the boat is really key because that dictates how your day is going to go, and it starts the night before the tournament. That's typically when you get a text from the organization letting you know who your draw is for the next day. A video I released about a year and a half ago, I kind of break down how the whole BFL situation and the Toyota situation works as far as meeting your boaters and, you know, what to expect and that kind of thing. So I won't touch on that too much, but the etiquette. Treat the boat as if it is your boat. Respect the boat. Don't clutter it up. You know, don't make yourself at home. Make yourself at home, but don't like throw down a tablecloth and set up a picnic basket in the back deck. One thing I usually do, a couple of things I usually do. First, ask the guy to let you know when he's about to go. So if you're fishing a spot and he's thinking about making a move, ask him to give you a heads up. So if you do have some stuff laid out, you can pick it up, or just that way you can start getting your life jacket on. If you've got, a lot of times it's cold, especially this time of the year, you're going to be getting your rain suit on or something that, you know, maybe a scarf, a helmet, whatever it is. Let him know you guys are about to take off. You know, let me know when you're making one more cast, your last cast, or just that kind of thing. That way you can be ready. He's not sitting back there at the steering wheel with the motor fired up, waiting on you to get all your stuff cleaned up. That is key. Secondly, communicate about the cast. You definitely don't want to be throwing over the boater. You want to give him his space. You don't want to be pushing him. There'll be a cadence, kind of a natural rhythm that will unveil itself throughout the first probably hour of the morning, depending on what type of technique you're fishing. But what I've always done is, if you see somebody casting, kind of watch how they're casting, how they're positioning the boat, and then ask if you can make this cast. So you can still cast towards the front of the boat, obviously not over his shoulder, but still towards the front of the boat, because as you're moving down the bank, you don't want to be casting, you know, right in front of you or actually the back of the boat most of the time. A couple things can happen. One, you're fishing used water, and 2, if you get hung up, you're either going to have to break off, and if your boater is kind enough, he's going to have to spin the boat around and go back and retrieve your bait, but you kind of lose your momentum, you kind of lose your flow. So it's ideal for both people in the boat if the guy in the back of the boat and the guy in the front of the boat obviously are throwing forward, but you don't want to throw too far forward. So you have to kind of conversate with the guy in the front of the boat and say, hey, is this a good cast? Do you mind this cast? Sometimes when you're sitting on a ledge or a point or something and the wind is blowing, there may only be a cast towards the front of the boat more directly to even get it in the general vicinity. Because say you're casting up on the tip of a point, the back of the boat may be out in the middle of nowhere, so you do need to make sort of a forward cast. And most boaters will say, hey, go ahead and cast up here, that's fine. But you need to get that figured out right off the bat, kind of figure out the flow and try to time your bait landing similar to his bait landing. So you're picking up about the same time. That way when he casts, you can cast, 10 feet from him, and it just kind of flows. So that's number 2. Number 3, communicate after the tournament about gas money. It's kind of I don't want to say it's controversial, but every boater has a different opinion on this. I've always offered, like after the tournament, I ask my boater what he wants for gas, and I'm prepared to pay at least $40. And a lot of that depends on how far you run. If you made a real long run, it's not uncommon for a boater to make a 30-mile run, 40-mile run. That may take a little bit of extra gas money out of your pocket. That's just the way it is. But there's also times where you really don't run but a mile or two. And so I really think that $40 covers that, no problem. The amount of money you pay your boater or gas money in general does not relate to whether you caught fish or not. It has nothing to do with it. The reason you're paying gas money or offering gas money is because that boater has most likely spent some time on the water previously, the last couple of days out there pre-fishing, trying to find fish, doing his best to put you in an area and him and himself in an area to have a good day. So it really doesn't, it's not so much about that day, it's about the things leading up to that. There's maybe the guy's still running a 2-stroke, which is kind of unlikely. There's not a lot of 2-strokes out there, but there will be oil. You got to put oil in the boat. There's just fuel in general that he spent money on figuring out the fish. And then there's the day of the tournament, obviously. But just because you don't catch any fish, and there's going to be times where you're not going to catch any fish or you're not going to weigh in. It just happens. I've got several trophies over there, but I've got several zeros as well. And I think anybody that's fished out of the back of the boat, anybody that's fished out of the front of the boat, there's days where you're just not going to be on the fish. But that has nothing to do with whether or not you pay your boater gas money. That's just part of the deal. You offer that money and be prepared to pay 40, 50, 60 bucks. Some boaters don't want anything. They're like, no, I'm good. I was going to go fishing anyway. Some boaters, will say whatever you think. And I'm typically going to offer, 40 bucks. So get that in your head and just be prepared with cash in your wallet to pay up at the end of the day. It just makes things go smoother. Another thing I think is important is offering to help out in the morning, however you can do it. If you're comfortable with backing the boat in, offer to do that. A lot of guys have their own boats. Even though we're fishing out of the back of the boat, we still fish out of the front of the boat in local tournaments or when we're fun fishing. So we're comfortable with putting the boat in and parking the trailer. That's a big help to the boater. If you're not, don't hesitate to let that boater know. There's nothing worse than getting all squirrely on the boat ramp or after you've dumped the boat in, not knowing how to park the vehicle and hitting the fender on another fender of a trailer that's parked in the parking lot. I've seen that happen several times. And then there's an insurance claim and it just turns into a bad morning. You get spun out. You're not going to be able to fish. If you're comfortable with backing the trailer up, let them know. If you're not, let them know. I've seen guys, the boater will actually back the boat and trailer all the way down to where the boat is almost like the trailer towers are almost in the water, and then they'll let the co-angler jump in. So all the co-angler has to do is just back straight down, float the boat off the trailer, go up and park it. That's something that most of us can do, even if we're not really comfortable with actually that full-on backing. If the guy will just, or girl will just get that trailer right there in the water, and then you can just ease back. So there's ways to work with someone if they're not comfortable with backing the trailer down. But bottom line is speak up. Don't be ashamed. Don't feel inferior. just because you haven't had practice backing a trailer. It's much better to speak up than to have some kind of accident, because that's going to make it not good at all. Both of you guys are going to be spun out. There's going to be money and insurance involved, and it's much better just to speak up. And that goes to the next point, which is communication. Talk to your boater throughout the day. You're really out there to have a good time. It's just, you guys are both going fishing. Really, in the grand schemes of things, it is just a bass tournament. And it's 8 hours in a boat with somebody that you most likely had not met or didn't know before that tournament. So take advantage of the opportunity to meet somebody. You're going to find people that you really get along with, and you're going to find people that you have a little bit different mindset than they do. But it's a great way to learn about the different kinds of personalities that are out there in the world. It's a great way to learn that there's different fishermen we're all doing the same thing, but we're coming at it from different angles, and we all have different personalities. You're going to learn that everybody approaches things, not everybody, but there's different ways to approach the same scenario, the same situation. That's one of the beauties of fishing out of the back of the boat. You can watch a person dissect an area, and they may approach it differently than you would. Typically, maybe you're thinking, I should be throwing a jig down this bank, or I would be throwing a jig down this bank, and they're throwing whatever, a crankbait or even a brush hog, something else on the bottom, and they're catching fish, and that opens your eyes up. You're going to see a different way to approach different scenarios and different pieces of cover, different docks, whatever that is that's in front of you. It's neat to see somebody attack that. It's nice to be able to learn a lake from somebody that most likely knows the lake fairly well. That's one of the advantages of being a co-angler in the BFLs, the Toyotas, the Bassmasters, or a bass club, whatever it is that you're involved with, is getting in a boat with somebody that knows the area. So even if you don't catch any fish that day, or you don't weigh in any fish, you're still getting to ride around the lake and look at navigation place, like where you can run the boat, where you can and cannot run the boat. That person's going to show you, you got to be careful in this area. This point comes out right here. There's a rock pile under there. That buoy means this buoy means that. Things that it would take you a long time to learn if you're just out there putting around by yourself. So you can learn a whole lot in a day, not just about fishing, but actually traveling around the lake. There's a lot of history on these lakes. A lot of these guys will tell you that old building right there in 1953 was a meat packing plant or something. They closed it down, and 1983, my great grandpa owned this farm over here, and I used to have a house over here. A lot of cool stuff, a lot of insider history stuff that you can learn out there on the water. And it's bottom line, it's about having fun. It's about enjoying yourself. Ideally, you do want to cash a check, and you do want to catch fish. But sometimes you just have to take the day for what it's worth and what it presents to yourself. Sure, fish hard, never give up, keep your head down, keep your bait wet. But always know that you are just fishing, and it's supposed to be fun. So don't get too spun out. Don't take it too seriously. Learn what you can and enjoy yourself. You're actually going to, when things are just happening natural and they're flowing, you seem to catch more fish. I almost think that fish can feel, I don't know, I don't want to get too weird here, but my buddy Jerry, we've talked about this before, but they can feel the energy on the other end of the pole. If you're tense, you got stuff that's you need to be taken care of, you got unfinished business, A, your mind's not going to be in the game. But B, it's like they can feel that. When you're relaxed and you're just fishing and you're making decisions and it's flowing, you're going to catch more fish. I just think it's just a way, it's just nature. That's how it is. You're going to catch more fish when you're not so tense. And the chemistry in the boat has a lot to do with that. If you're communicating, you're having a good time, you're just relaxed, you're going to catch more fish. You're at least going to have a better time. I will promise you that. Bring as many rods as you think you need, but just remember, you're not fishing that long. So really, the closer you can get it to like 6 rods, even 5 is better, the better off you are. Most boaters could care less how many rods you bring. Now, if you got a bunch of tackle that's going to be getting in the way, that's another thing. You're responsible for your rods. You're going to have to be messing with them all day long. And believe me, when you start making runs and waves and stuff, that gets all tangled up. There's times when I'll take 8 rods. There is. But as I fish these BFLs more and more, I've really downsized everything. I've downsized my tackle, and I really try to keep it around 6 rods. That's my goal. 5 is even better, but it seems like I always end up taking an extra rod just for some specific technique. Generally, you're gonna have like 2 or 3 rods in your hand most of the day. Ideally 1, maybe 2. Once you kind of, figure out, fine tune your strategy, but don't have stuff spread out everywhere in the boat. That's another thing. Keep your area clean. When I'm cutting off a bait, I typically will just throw it on the floor because I don't like to put wet baits back in the box. I like to let them dry out. But don't get stuff everywhere. Don't have sunglasses case laying here. Don't have sunscreen over here. Plano 3700 on the, just don't have stuff spread out. And that goes kind of to the reason I told you earlier, where when the boater's ready to go, you need to be ready to go. But just don't totally make yourself at home. Don't have everything spread out. It's not your boat, you're a guest. So close to 5 or 6 rods as possible. Keep a neat, tidy space. It's just gonna be better. You're not gonna trip over stuff. It just makes more sense. Let's talk tackle bag. What do you need to carry your tackle on and off the boat? Up until last year, I was using a backpack, and I like the backpack ideal. It's a really good ideal. It puts it on your back. You got 2 free hands. The backpack I had was a little bit too big, and it was wore out. So it was time to make an upgrade or a change. And I went to just Academy. I mean, you can get these tackle bags anywhere. This is just a duffel bag size deal. It's a lot smaller. I don't know the exact dimensions, but I would say it's about, I don't know, like 15 by no more than 12, maybe a little bit smaller than that. This is just an ugly stick. It was not that expensive. It was like 40 bucks or something. It came with a couple 3700s. But I've downsized, and I'll explain to you why. This thing's got, I won't go through all the different pockets or whatever, but you can put sunscreen right here. This area right here is the spot where I will put my sunglasses and sun gloves. I mean, I'm usually going to carry 2 sets of Bahio sunglasses. I like the violet for the cloudy days, and then I like the rose color for the really sunny, bright days. I usually take 2 of these with me. If it's going to be just a full-on sunshine day, I'll just go with the rose. But if it's going to be cloudy all day, I'll go with the violet. I like to just have 1 in there, but sometimes you have to take 2. Sungloves are key. I'll put some pliers. I'll put some snips. I'll put some spike it marker pins in there, whatever. That's kind of what this is, kind of multi-purpose. Then in the sides, I will put some line in there. I got some extra Cumberland Pro jigs and spinner baits and stuff in there. But in this side, I'll just put some line, some leader material, because throwing a spinning rod a lot, you're gonna need some leader material. So I'll just have some like 8 and 10 pound leader just on this side, but got some extra storage. But here's the key thing right here. So inside of this compartment, it will hold 3 3700s. I usually only have 2. I think I have 3 in there today because I was fishing a couple days ago with my buddy Josh. Yeah, and it's jerkbait season, so I had a whole thing of jerkbaits in there. Typically I have 2. So the way I've been setting this up, it's just an open duffel bag. I throw soft plastics in the bottom. This is what I use for my soft plastics. And I've really downsized. I've really kept it simple. You're typically going to be throwing like some shade of green pumpkin purple, green pumpkin gold, green pumpkin blue, whatever your favorite green pumpkin-ish type bait is. Or you're going to be throwing something darker. June bug, black and blue, California 420, whatever color it is. So each of the bait styles, the body styles of soft plastics that I like, I'll try to have a more natural color and then a darker color. So that way I've got everything covered. And I don't throw really anything in there that I don't have confidence in. To me, tournament day is not the day to experiment. Usually if something is happening, say your boater's catching them on, something very unique, Most boaters will be kind enough, if not at the beginning, after they've got their limit, to loan you whatever it is that's working so well. But I found that that's pretty rare. As you fish the certain bodies of water more and more, you kind of get an idea of what the fish have a tendency of doing at certain times of the year. Bottom line, downsize your plastics. You don't need everything in the kitchen sink. So that allows you to put 2 of these 3700s in the top, and they fit right in there. And then I got room on top for, I can scrunch a rain suit in there. I can put some bottles of water and some snacks in the top of that. I can also use these other pockets for the snacks and stuff. But I've got a little bit of room. If you do need something specific like an Alabama rig box, you still got room for 3, and you can even downsize some of your plastics and go 4. But I typically do 2, and the boxes that I rig up have a little bit of everything in them. I don't just have, you know, one specific. It's not like your own boat where you can just organize every specific bait style in its own box. It's kind of a little smorgasbord of everything in these boxes. That's kind of the way I do it. Maybe somebody does it differently than that, but you know, I have jigs and weights. I'll have lots of Cumberland Pro jigs in here. I got some of their Little Runt Finesse jigs. I got some of the pig jigs. I got some of the Bama Swim jigs. Also got some chatterbaits, some jackhammers, let's see, that's really it on the bladed jigs. And then I'll have some crankbaits, you know, just some different styles of crankbaits, some deeper diving, maybe just one deep diving crankbait, some mid crankbaits, and then some shallow divers. And then I'll have some lipless. And then I just have some different weights, like some Carolina rig weights, some swivels, just some flipping hooks, tungsten weights, some shaky heads, gotta have some shaky heads, and then some tube hooks. But I can get almost all that in one of these boxes. Now, there's gonna be times when you definitely want some more auxiliary. Say you're going to a lake that's heavy on a certain type of bait. You know, like I mentioned, jerk bait. You know, like I've got extra jerk baits in here. I've got quite a few different jerk baits. So I'm kind of heavier on the jerk baits right now because that's that time of year. It's cold water, so I'm having a tendency to fish more of the jerk baits. When it warms up, I may take almost all these jerk baits out and I may replace them with a lot more crankbaits or maybe some more bladed jigs. It just depends on the season. So these 2 boxes the baits kind of rotate in and out of those. But keeping it light, keeping it simple makes it easier. It's just gonna, you know, ideally is you want to find a bait that you have confidence in. A couple baits that you have confidence in when you're fishing out of the back of the boat. Things go by fast. A lot of times you're running, you may be making a lot of long runs. You may be spending a lot of time behind the wheel graphing. You don't have a lot of time to capitalize on the situations. There's days when there's really short windows that the fish are feeding on. There's also days when your boater is fishing a certain way where you don't have a lot of opportunities. So you need to be focusing on presentation, and you need to have something that you have confidence in your hand. A couple more things we'll talk about before we wrap this up. You know, this has been long, and maybe we'll do another one of these later on. Leave your comments, anything that I touched on that you didn't agree with, or things that you've learned over the years that you can add to this, because the comment section is something a lot of people read. So it's a great place to leave comments and just leave your input out there. Some things that I missed, some things that you've learned, some things that you'd like me to touch on a little bit more. Definitely put them in the comment section, and subscribe to the channel too, and give me a thumbs up if you appreciate the content. Subscribing is a great way to just let us content creators know that you appreciate this content. One thing I wanted to mention before I forget is dyes. I quit bringing the Spike It liquid. It has a tendency to leak, and I put it in a bag, you know, like a Ziploc baggie, but it still leaks in the Ziploc baggie. And when you pull it out, you don't want to get that on your boater's carpet. That's not good. So what I've done is I went to the Spike It markers. They're very handy. They're really precise. You can just barely touch everything, get the tips, and put the lid on it and put it back in your bag. You don't have to worry about it. Highly, highly, highly recommend going away from the dies and going to the markers. This right here is something you definitely need to bring: a personal flotation device, PFD, life jacket, whatever you want to call it. Bring this with you. Try to remember this. Most boaters will have an extra one in the boat, but try to show up with this. As far as some standard baits that you should definitely consider throwing out of the back of the boat, finesse is key most of the time. We're just trying to get bites. If you put 5 keepers in the boat, you're gonna get a check. If you put 4 keepers in the boat, you're most likely gonna get a check. So you've got to get bites. It's not about catching a 20-pound bag most of the time. Ideally, yeah, you want to catch a 20-pound bag, but that's going to happen when it's supposed to happen. We're just trying to get bites. We're taking scraps most of the day, and we just need to put fish in the boat. So finesse is one of the best ways to do that. A shaky head is played. Shaky head's played for me a bunch. I've had several good tournaments on a shaky head, just keeping that in my hand, fishing it all year long. The 3rd place finish I had in the LBL division last year was on a shaky head, and the 5th place finish I had on Table Rock last year was on a shaky head. So the shaky head is very important. I've had some pretty decent finishes in the past on Kentucky Lake with a shaky head. That's one of my confidence baits for sure. There's situations where your boater may be throwing a jig. A shaky head's a good thing to throw behind them, and a tube is another good thing to throw behind them. I've seen it a lot of times where they'll pass up a jig, but they'll eat a tube for whatever reason. So just a little word of advice: try to keep it a little bit different from what your boater's doing. Don't try to match him bait for bait unless it's super obvious that they are really on a green pumpkin half-ounce jig with a Zoom speed crawl trailer. If it's that obvious, then you definitely want to be throwing that, but most of the time it's not. And throwing something a little bit different can get you some bites behind your boater. If he's throwing a half-ounce green pumpkin jig, maybe throw a 1/4 ounce downsized finesse, or go the other way, throw something really heavy. Do something different. Not just the color and the trailer, but also the weight can make a big difference. And sometimes that's hard to do because you want to be throwing the same thing that he's throwing because you see him getting bites every once in a while. But mixing it up is a way to go on that. Weightless, something weightless. If he's throwing something that's dragging on the bottom, try to throw something weightless like a wacky rig. Wacky rig gets a lot of bites out of the back of the boat. Another thing that really plays is a drop shot. A lot of guys throw a drop shot out of the back of the boat. I've had some decent days throwing a drop shot. I think Table Rock 2 years ago, I had it was like a top 12 or something like that, and I was throwing a drop shot. It was just that time of the year. Smallmouth and spots were spawning up shallow, and dragging a drop shot through the bed was the way to go, but they seemed to hit that drop shot that day over the Ned rig, and Ned rig's another thing. It's right there with that shaky head, shaky head Ned drop shot. But you see what I'm getting at? It's kind of the finesse type stuff. Throwing it on braid to fluorocarbon, just light stuff you can fling around there. Be good at skipping. If you can learn how to pitch and skip, that's really key. If you can learn to pitch skip straight ahead or even backhand, you're going to be able to get your baits under the boat a lot more, because your boater's fishing off the front of the boat, so he can do that sidearm skip. You really can't do that well. You've got power poles and a motor. If you're set up to skip that way behind you, that's going to be a mess. The other way, you've got the windshield in the way, and you're coming over to the center of the boat. So you got to learn to pitch skip or backhand skip. That's something you really need to work on out of the back of the boat. It'll get you a lot of bites. All right, we got to wrap this up. I'm getting too yappity schmappity, been going on for a while. Thanks everybody for checking this out. I hope it helped. Hope you got some ideas from it. Let me know in the comment section, what are some of the things that you've learned over the years of co-angling? We need to have a live stream. Maybe I'll have another co-angling live stream. If you guys don't know, we do live streams on Monday nights at 7:30 Central. Jonathan Blattle and I will jump on here, and we typically have a guest, and it's a great way to meet the guest, ask questions. We've got a lot of different people have been on the live streams. It's a good time. You can get in the chat, you can ask questions, leave comments. It's very interactive, but we need to have another co-angling live stream soon. And let me know what you've learned, because everybody reads the comments, and it's a great way to share that knowledge. We're all in this together, and it's really about having fun. So thanks for watching. Once again, please subscribe if you have not, and leave me a thumbs up. My voice is getting hoarse. I've been talking forever, so that's all I got for you. Until next time.